race to the White House is heating up. President Trump took Texas in 2016, but is there a Democratic candidate who could unseat him this year? Here to talk about this is Travis County GOP Chairman Matt Mackowiak and Glenn Smith with Progress Texas. Thank you both for being here.
Sure.
A new Texas Lyceum poll shows Bernie Sanders, not Joe Biden, has the best chance of beating President Trump in the 2020 general election. In that poll, Sanders is behind Trump, though, by only 3 points. Glenn, do you believe Bernie Sanders has the best chance among the Democratic candidates of beating Trump in the general election?
Oh, I don't know. If I was able to give advice to Texas voters or Democratic voters going into this primary, it would be take all polls with a grain of salt. We're saturated with polls from one source or another. They're all going to say different things. When your candidate looks good in one poll, you're going to be happy. Then the next poll comes out, you're not going to be happy. If ever there was an election year that was more volatile than this and harder to poll, I don't know when it was. The results are all over the map, and I think people ought to pay attention to the issues they care about, the candidates they like or don't like, and kind of disregard the polls. I know, with all apologies to my pollster friends, I think that's the best way to proceed this year.
Matt, what are your thoughts? How reliable are polls taken this early in the race?
Oh, not very at all. If anything, primary polling is far more reliable now. The general election polling, we're still 9 months away, and the general election campaign hasn't even begun. The Democratic candidates for president are running a primary. They're focused on Democratic primary voters, not general election voters. And so I respect the Texas Lyceum. I'd love to look more at what their sample was, what their partisan screen was, those kinds of things. But I think if you step back, it's really hard to take seriously the contention that Bernie Sanders would be the strongest general election candidate against Donald Trump in Texas or anywhere. Now, I will admit there is quite a bit of debate about whether Bernie Sanders can beat Trump or not. I'm in the category that believes he probably can't, because he is as far to the left as any Democratic presidential candidate in the primary, and that would open up voters in the middle to Trump. But I will say Sanders has a sharp message. He has a lot of enthusiasm. He's very clear what he believes. And so he could be a serious general election candidate. And I think if he wins Iowa and perhaps then New Hampshire, he's going to be really hard to stop, even if the sort of party establishment tries to kind of rise up against him.
Glenn, which Democratic candidate do you think would fare best in Texas?
It's impossible to say right now. That's kind of what I'm talking. I think, all of them are strong. I like Klobuchar. I like Elizabeth Warren. I like Biden. I'm open to Bloomberg. I don't want to have to choose among them now. One of the things to keep in mind, and Matt kind of alluded to something that's a very important point. Right now in the presidential primaries, these candidates are campaigning in Iowa and New Hampshire and Nevada. They're not campaigning in Texas. Texas hasn't really got to see any of them yet. So what you're getting is a very kind of loose preference in the polls. It could be totally upside down by the time the March primary gets here from what they're seeing in the polls now. That's why I say voters should focus on the issues they care about, look to the candidates, read about each of them, help the ones they want to help, keep an open mind until we get there.
Matt, what do you think? Is there a particular Democrat who would do better than another versus Trump, do you think?
I think if you look if you look at the 6 or 8, however many candidates are still in the Democratic race, I would probably say that Joe Biden and perhaps Amy Klobuchar would be the strongest general election candidates in Texas and nationally. I think they both are more to the middle. They would have more appeal to voters in the middle, to independent voters, to moderate voters, even to some soft Republicans who may not like the president. And the challenge is that they have taken some positions that are pretty far to the left, not as far as Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, but I do think that they are more centrist than those two other candidates are. But right now, Biden has a decent chance to be the nominee. It's hard to see a path for Amy Klobuchar, the senator from Minnesota. So it looks to me like this is coming down to a Biden-Sanders race, and Iowa and New Hampshire are going to be pretty important. But I think Texas on March 3rd, along with California and a number of other states, is going to matter as well.
Okay, we are out of time. But Matt, Glenn, thank you both for coming in and sharing your perspectives with us tonight.
Thank you.